The voice that gave the order was calm. Precise. Subject K-09, terminate the human. It echoed across the metallic chamber like a gunshot, cutting through the low hum of machinery. On the observation deck above, Commander Yalrek Thurn folded his hands behind his back, reptilian eyes narrowing with clinical disinterest. In the center of the arena below, Dr. Mara Voss didn't flinch. She didn't run. She simply breathed once, shallow and controlled, her pulse tapping behind her ears like a metronome as she stared up at the hulking creature across from her. K-09 stirred. Massive and shadow-dark, the bioengineered hybrid beast uncurled from its crouch. It stood tall, 3 meters of chitin, muscle, and bone-plated armor. Thin threads of blue biolight pulsed along its limbs, veins of eerie energy beneath the skin. 6 crimson eyes blinked in unison, locking on Mara. Steel doors sealed behind her with a hiss. Mara didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her fingers, subtly trembling, were clasped behind her back. Her voice would betray fear. Her stance could not. K-09's claws flexed once, slicing grooves into the arena floor. A technician in the control room leaned closer to his console. "It's processing the order," he murmured. Yalrek's voice sliced the silence. "Proceed with kill sequence confirmation. Full aggression." K-09 took a step forward. Mara held her ground. Another step. The ground vibrated. The beast let out a low, vibrating growl, a sound not of rage but thought. Its nostrils flared as it scented the air between them. Something in its eyes shifted. It stopped. A full 5 seconds passed. Then, slowly, deliberately, K-09 lowered itself to the floor. Its claws clattered against the steel. Muscles rippling beneath bioskin, the monster curled around Mara's legs and lowered its head beside her boots. One low, resonant exhale fogged the air between them. On the observation deck, chaos ignited. "What is it doing?" barked a Concord officer. Override failed. "The target, it's not responding to the termination protocol." Yalrek's jaw clenched. "Impossible. Re-engage the neural chain, now." Mara finally moved. With deliberate care, she knelt and placed a hand gently on the monster's plated head. Its breath deepened. The pulsing lights in its body slowed. For a moment, everything was still. "He's not a machine," Mara said quietly, looking directly at the observation glass. "He made a choice." Yalrek's eyes met hers. Cold. Calculating. Disgusted. "Dr. Voss," he said over the intercom, voice flat, "you are hereby detained under Concord Order 91 Theta for contaminating a classified military asset. Guards, escort her to holding. Begin sterilization of the test subject immediately." Mara straightened slowly. K-09 stirred as Boots approached from behind. She didn't resist as they grabbed her arms. "Koa," she whispered, just once. The creature's head jerked up. Its claws tensed, but it didn't move. The guards dragged her away. The cell door hissed shut behind her. Dim lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the walls. No windows. No clock. Time dissolved into the stale air. Mara sat on the bench, hands folded in her lap. She couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear, but from the way it had looked at her. Not as a threat. Not even as a handler. But as something it trusted. Koa. She had named him that months ago, quietly, when no one else was listening. K-09 had sounded clinical, cold, what they wanted it to be. But she'd seen something in it, even during its first trials, a pause before it struck. A hesitation when others expected violence. That hesitation had nearly cost her her position. Now, it had saved her life. But for how long? She leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. The memories came sharp and fast. Her colony. The screams. The things that tore through her home when she was 10, organic weapons gone rogue, unleashed by Concord experiments. They called it an incident. Mara called it the day she learned fear could be manufactured. She'd spent her life studying emotional response in artificial life forms. She believed in neural imprinting. In empathy. She believed monsters weren't born, they were shaped by the hands around them. And now she had proof. The door slid open. A figure stepped inside, a young technician, barely out of training, with trembling hands and darting eyes. "Mara," he whispered. "They're sterilizing it. Right now. Full neuroburn. You have to get out." She stood. "What section?" "Containment. Biolab C. But the override needs a level 4 Concord sigil." "I don't." "I do," she said, pulling a narrow access band from under her sleeve. The tech stared. "They'll kill you." "Then I'd better move fast." The station's red alert pulsed as she crept through the lower access corridor, ducking behind maintenance bots and pipeworks. Her stolen badge worked twice. The third time, she had to bypass an AI gate using an old security backdoor, one she'd coded herself when no one was watching. Her heart pounded like a war drum. Biolab C loomed ahead, cold lights, armored guards, interior darkened behind reinforced glass. Inside, Koa lay chained to a steel slab. Twitching. Fighting sedative. A drone hovered above its head, a burning red light blinking on its neural port. They were going to burn his mind. Erase everything. Mara crouched low, pulled a cable from the wall, and jammed it into her access port. "Come on, come on." The door hissed open. Sirens flared. Lights snapped red. She sprinted inside. Koa's eyes fluttered open. He didn't growl. Didn't thrash. He blinked slowly. Recognition. Mara crossed to the slab, slammed the neural drone aside, and began cutting the restraints with a plasma tool from the emergency panel. "You're not dying here," she whispered. Guards pounded the outer door. Koa growled once, low, guttural. The red lights on his limbs began pulsing faster. The last chain snapped. The door burst open. Koa stood. The door shattered inward with a blast of white light. Shouts echoed. Plasma rifles crackled. Mara dropped, shielding her face from flying debris. Smoke curled around the edges of the breach, followed by 3 armored guards storming in, weapons raised. They saw her. They saw Koa. And then they hesitated. Because the monster wasn't attacking. He stood between her and them, not moving, not growling, just watching. Then he did. In a blur, he lunged. One swipe tore a weapon from a guard's hands. Another flung a second soldier into the wall. The third fired in panic, searing a gash across Koa's shoulder, but was silenced by a sudden backhand that crushed the rifle into the man's chest plate, dropping him breathless to the ground. Mara was on her feet instantly. "Koa!" "That's enough," she yelled. He turned, breathing hard, and stopped. She stepped closer, hand out. The monster looked at her, and took one step back. Not out of fear, but restraint. He understood, and that terrified her more than anything else. "Come on," she said, voice low. "We don't have much time." They took the sub-level corridors, rarely used maintenance routes that bypassed Concord patrols. The alarms still echoed through the station like war drums, but these halls remained empty, for now. Mara led him with brisk, sure steps, the path etched into her memory. Years spent wandering Erebus Station's forgotten wings, while others mocked her soft research, were now paying off. Koa followed without question. No leash. No commands. Just choice. He limped slightly. Blood, deep blue and iridescent, seeped from his shoulder wound. She stopped beneath a flickering overhead panel and opened a med kit from a wall panel. "I need to close this," she said, gesturing for him to sit. Koa stared at her hand, then at her face, and sat. She applied the sealant, watching his muscles tense but never twitch in aggression. "Not once." "You saved me," she said quietly, pressing the last patch over the wound. "Twice now." He rumbled, low and soft. Not quite a growl, more like a hum. They moved again, deeper now, into the decommissioned lower levels, where old prototypes had been stored, studied, forgotten. The lights were dim, systems untouched in years. Dust and shadow cloaked the walls. This is where she'd first seen Koa. Back when he wasn't even designated K-09 yet. Just a prototype with half-formed limbs and a flickering neural imprint. Back when she still believed they'd let her try something different. She remembered staying late, alone in these labs, whispering to him through reinforced glass. Not commands. Words. Gentle ones. Names. I'm Mara. You're not a thing. Not to me. Koa. That means brave. And slowly, the growls stopped. He'd listen. He'd tilt his head. Mimic tones. Blink slower when she smiled. That's when she knew he wasn't just alive. He was learning. Now, seated across from him on a cold floor, she saw that learning in his eyes again. They were different now, not just predatory, but alert. Curious. She tried a whisper. Do you remember your name? Koa's head tilted. Koa, she said again, tapping her chest. You. Koa. He blinked, reached a clawed hand toward his chest. Tapped once. A strange noise came from him. Almost a grunt, almost a cough. Ka, he muttered. Mara froze. That was speech. Not instinct. Not programming. Speech. Her chest tightened. No one else would believe it. Yalrek wouldn't care. But she knew what she'd heard. You're more than they wanted you to be, she said softly. And they're afraid of that. Back in the Concord war room above, Commander Yalrek stared at the red blinking terminal. The sterilization team had gone dark. Drone telemetry showed a breach. Subject K-09's life signs were active and moving fast toward the outer corridors. He leaned forward, voice flat. Lock down the sublevels. Deploy hunter squads with thermal sweep. The creature and the scientist must be terminated within the hour. A junior officer hesitated. Sir, if the creature is showing behavioral divergence, should we capture it for? No, Yalrek snapped. It disobeyed a direct order. It is compromised. She has infected it. The word hung in the air. Infected. As if empathy were a disease. Mara and Koa reached a sealed maintenance door near the end of Sector 12. The panel was dead, no power. Mara pried it open and began rerouting the wires. We're not far from the hangar, she said, not looking up. There's an old launch pod that's still spaceworthy. Not fast. Not armed. But it'll fly. Koa loomed nearby, silent. Listening. I don't know where we'll go, she added. Anywhere they won't follow. Maybe the fringe colonies. Maybe nowhere. The panel sparked. The lock clicked. She looked up. And saw him watching her, really watching, head slightly lowered, body relaxed. As if waiting. Not for a command. For her choice. You don't have to follow me, she whispered. Koa stepped forward. Tapped his chest. Koa, he said again. Firmer. Clearer. Then he tapped her shoulder. Ma. Her breath caught. Mara. It wasn't perfect. But it was intentional. Her name. And his. Spoken. Shared. She felt tears sting her eyes, but blinked them back. Not here. Not yet. She opened the door. The moment the door slid open, the cold bit into them. Mara stepped into the disused docking wing, its vast skeletal hangar bathed in flickering emergency lights. Debris littered the floor, broken tools, power cables, rusted supply crates. Most of the vessels were stripped or decommissioned shells, but at the far end sat a half-covered scout pod, its silver hull dulled by neglect but intact. That's our way out, she said. Koa didn't respond with words. He stood behind her like a shadow, silent but alert, eyes scanning everything. She noticed the slight tremor in his injured leg. The earlier gash was still seeping, leaving faint drops along the floor. We need to move fast, she said. They crossed the hangar in long strides. The scout pod's exterior console blinked a sluggish green, old power, barely alive. Mara keyed in her access code. The panel chirped but stalled. Locked out. Of course. Concord override, she muttered, yanking off the outer casing. Her fingers flew across the exposed wires, bypassing the entry protocol. I built this failsafe when they downgraded my clearance. Never thought I'd use it to escape. Koa crouched near the entrance, low and still, scanning every sound. Then he growled. Not loud. Not angry. Just warning. Mara froze. What is it? Footsteps. Echoing. Close. She turned. Figures emerged from the other end of the hangar, 4 Concord enforcers in obsidian armor, moving in a tight V formation. Their weapons were raised. Behind them, a fifth silhouette stepped out of the smoke, hands folded, stride unhurried. Yalrek. Of course. His voice was flat, amplified through a communicator. Cold as vacuum. You should have stayed in your cell, Dr. Voss. Mara stepped in front of Koa. Back away, she said. You're not taking him. You don't get to command anything here, Yalrek replied. Stand down. Both of you. Koa stood. The soldiers flinched, shifting their aim. Yalrek didn't blink. You've damaged the specimen. You've confused its instincts. It's malfunctioning. He's not malfunctioning, Mara said. He's making choices. Yalrek's expression never changed. It's a weapon. Not a citizen. Not a child. Not your pet. Mara's jaw tightened. No. He's not any of those things. He's something you don't understand. That's why you're afraid. Yalrek raised a hand. Terminate them both. The soldiers moved in. Koa lunged. It was chaos. The kind that didn't unfold in stages. It exploded. Koa swept the nearest soldier aside with a thunderclap of motion, claws slicing through armor like foil. He didn't kill, Mara saw it, but he left damage that would take weeks to recover from. Another raised a plasma cannon. Koa dropped low and drove his shoulder into the soldier's chest, sending both flying into a stack of crates. Mara ducked as a bolt cracked over her head. Sparks showered her hair. She scrambled toward the pod, wrenching wires together, fingers slick with sweat. The engine began to whine. Weakly. She needed more time. A guard charged her. Koa intercepted. He didn't roar. He didn't revel in it. He protected. Only one soldier remained standing, weapon trained directly at Koa's head. Stop! Mara shouted. He's not trying to kill you. The soldier hesitated, just for a second. That was all Koa needed. He snatched the weapon and tossed it down the hall. The soldier backed away, hands raised. Yalrek never moved. Not once. When Koa turned toward him, breathing hard, lights flickering across his skin, Yalrek finally took a step forward. No weapon. Just words. You think it chose you? He asked Mara. You think that means anything? It's mimicking you. Echoing a weakness. It's understanding me, she said. That's more than any of your soldiers have done. His lips curled slightly. It's still property. She stepped forward. Then why does it spare you? Why isn't he tearing you apart right now? Silence stretched between them. Koa's claws twitched. His breath was heavy. One more word, one wrong move, and the hanger would be soaked in blood. But Mara didn't want that. She reached for Koa's arm, fingers gently brushing his cracked armor. Don't, she said softly. You're not like him. Koa's chest rose and fell. And then, he turned away. Yalrek stood still, tense, waiting for pain that never came. Mara stared directly into his eyes. We choose what we are, she said. Yalrek's voice dropped. Then you've chosen exile. The pod doors slid open behind her. Koa stepped in first, crouching beside the cockpit. Mara followed, sealing the hatch. The external feed flickered as Concord personnel swarmed the hangar behind them. Too late. The engines coughed to life. Mara gripped the manual controls. Her hands were shaking. Navigation's fried, she muttered. We'll be flying blind. Koa leaned close, claws tapping the floor rhythmically. She felt the hum of his breath on her shoulder. We'll be okay, she said, barely convincing herself. We'll find a place. She glanced back at the hangar one last time. Through the cockpit window, Yalrek stood alone, surrounded by stunned soldiers. He stared at them as they lifted off, face unreadable, but eyes burning. He hadn't lost a weapon. He'd lost control. Stars unfolded before them, a smear of light, movement, and possibility. Koa shifted his weight, curling his long limbs beneath him, body pressed against the cold metal of the pod. Mara watched him for a long moment. He wasn't designed for peace. But he'd chosen it. That had to count for something. The scout pod hurtled through uncharted space, a tin can bouncing through a storm of stars. Systems flickered. Hull integrity was stable. Barely. The NAV screen spun uselessly, searching for signals that didn't exist. Mara stared at the data loop cycling on repeat. "Still blind," she muttered. Koa said nothing. He hadn't spoken, hadn't made a sound, since they'd left Concord Station. He sat motionless against the rear wall, knees pulled up, head lowered, eyes dim. "You're thinking," she said, glancing over her shoulder. Still no response. She stood and moved closer. "You understand what happened, don't you? Back there." His eyes shifted toward her, slow, unreadable. "You disobeyed," she continued. "You made your own call. That's not a malfunction. It's evolution." A low pulse sounded from his chest, neither aggressive nor soft. A neutral acknowledgement. She took it as progress. "We'll find a place," she said again, more to herself than him. A signal relay, a colony fringe, something off the Concord grid. She turned back to the console. Static. Silence. And then a pulse. Faint. Encrypted. Mara leaned in. "That's not Concord." She tapped into the wave, decrypting line by line. A system pinged in reply. Coordinates spilled across the cracked display, barely legible but real. "Scov beacon," she whispered. Koa shifted. "They don't broadcast to strangers unless they're desperate or dying." Her hand hovered over the manual course corrector. "Could be a trap." Koa stood. Mara smirked. "Right. When has that stopped us?" They dropped out of warp on the edge of a gas giant. Its swirling blue atmosphere loomed like a slow storm. Orbiting it, a shattered mining platform, rusted, massive, skeletal. The beacon blinked from a tiny dock module attached like an afterthought to the larger wreck. "Looks empty," Mara muttered. Koa leaned forward beside her. His claws tapped once against the glass. "Let's be quick." Inside the dock module, everything smelled of cold metal and recycled air. Panels blinked dimly. The emergency lighting had burned into permanent twilight. A voice crackled from the far end. "Whoever's breathing out there, identify yourself." Mara stepped forward, hands raised. "Civilian vessel. No Concord ties. We picked up your beacon." A pause. Then, one entrance. No sudden moves. They approached the door. It hissed open slowly. Inside, two figures. A woman in a grease-stained jumpsuit, maybe 35. One arm cybernetic. Eyes sharp. Behind her, a boy, couldn't be more than 8, clutching a half-charged plasma pistol he didn't know how to use. The woman narrowed her eyes. "You brought a war beast." Mara stepped aside, revealing Koa completely. "He's not what you think." The woman didn't lower her weapon. "They never are." Koa didn't flinch. Mara raised her voice. "We're not Concord. We're running." A long silence. Then the woman exhaled. "Aren't we all?" The woman's name was Tess Nyril, a former engineer-turned-scavenger. The boy was her nephew, Jace. Their ship had broken down mid-salvage. Communications were severed weeks ago. "You're lucky the beacon still works," she said, pouring water into cracked cups. "Power's near zero. Food's worse. That thing," she nodded toward Koa, "eats." "Not like we do," Mara said. "He metabolizes energy from heat, radiation. Doesn't need much." Tess frowned. "Well, that makes one of us." Mara watched Koa crouch near Jace, eyes calm. The boy didn't back away. Instead, slowly, he stepped forward and placed a tiny toy on the floor, an old battlecruiser model. Koa tilted his head, then tapped it once, gentle. The boy smiled. "See," Mara said. "He learns fast." Tess shook her head. "That's what scares me." Later, in a dim chamber patched with old solar blankets and torn insulation, Mara sat across from Tess. "What's his name?" Tess asked. "Koa. I think it means strength. Peace. Fitting." Mara sipped her water. "He was bred to destroy. But when they ordered him to kill me, he didn't." Tess leaned back. "Concord won't let that go. You know that, right? They don't have a choice. We're gone." Tess raised an eyebrow. "You think they'll let you disappear?" You humiliated their admiral on a live feed. Mara sighed. I know. You'll bring a war to anyone who helps you. Mara looked away. And I'll still bring it, she said quietly. That night, she sat beside Koa in silence. You knew they'd never stop, she said, watching his expression. Not after what you did. His eyes met hers. I didn't create you, she whispered. But I see you. You're not what they built. You're what you choose to be. Koa closed his eyes. The soft purr began again, low, steady, familiar. Not a machine. Not a monster. A living choice. Suddenly, klaxons. Sirens screamed through the wreck. Mara bolted upright. Tessa's voice rang out over the intercom. Unidentified vessel, approaching fast. No codes. No transponder. Mara ran to the terminal, Koa behind her. The screen showed a sleek black ship cutting through the void. Faster, newer, unmistakably Concord. They found us. Tess joined her. You brought hell here. I'll get us out, Mara said. I swear. Tess shook her head. They'll blast this station apart. We won't make it. Koa stood between them, calm, poised. Mara turned to him. What are you thinking? He looked at the screen. Then at her. Then at the boy, hiding in the corner. And for the first time, he spoke. 2 syllables. Soft. Deliberate. Protect all. The Concord Hunter-class frigate dropped into orbit like a blade. No lights. No hail. Just silence and inevitability. Mara stood in the docking corridor, suit half-sealed, heart racing. They're powering weapons, Tess called from the control deck. Standard spread, plasma scatter and ion disruptors. One volley could shatter this station. Then we don't give them the chance, Mara said, locking her chest plate. Tess handed her a neural uplink. If you're serious about leaving, the boy and I will buy you time. No, Koa said. One word. Clear. Heavy with intention. Tess blinked. He talks now. He chooses now, Mara corrected. Koa stepped forward, gaze steady on the approaching frigate's silhouette. His massive form moved with eerie precision. I go. No, Mara said. They want you. That's the trap. He looked at her. Not defiance. Not submission. Understanding. Protect all. The words echoed again, deeper this time. Mara reached for him. Koa, if you go alone, they'll... I know. His eyes burned brighter than plasma now. Not rage. Resolve. The escape pod's release doors hissed open. Mara and Tess shoved ration packs, core drives, and a short-range relay beacon into the tiny craft. Jace clung to Mara's side, confused, too young to grasp why the monster who had become his silent guardian was now walking toward a warship alone. I'll draw them off, Koa said, voice like stone. You run. Mara gritted her teeth. You don't owe them sacrifice. No, he said. I owe you choice. The frigate's cannons ignited, charging. They had seconds. Mara lunged forward and wrapped her arms around him. Her head only reached his chest plate. The cold metal hummed with low internal power. You don't have to die. I don't intend to. And then he was gone. The frigate didn't wait. The first shot tore through the station's outer ring. Debris spun outward like bone. Mara slammed the pod's hatch shut as Tess dove inside. She punched the release. The pod ejected just as the second blast severed the dock module completely. From space, the station folded inward, collapsing in on itself. Fire bloomed across its fractured ribs. But Koa was already aboard the enemy ship. Inside the Concord vessel, chaos reigned. He tore through bulkheads with mechanical grace, absorbing plasma bursts, ripping control nodes from walls. Drones collapsed. Troopers scattered. Sirens wailed. He wasn't raging. He was precise. A weapon, but wielding himself. In the command bridge, Admiral Yalrek stood, hands clasped behind his back. You came, he said, half smirking. Predictable. Koa stepped forward. No. Evolved. The Admiral raised a small controller. Your kill code is still active. Koa didn't stop. Yalrek pressed the button. Nothing. You modified your neural chain, the Admiral growled. Rewrote, Koa said. Yalrek drew his sidearm. Old, ceremonial. He fired once. Koa caught the slug mid-air. Then he spoke once more. You taught me to obey. She taught me why not to. And then the bridge collapsed into darkness. In the escape pod, Mara watched the wreckage of the Concorde frigate blossom into the void. A burst of white and red, silent, brilliant, final. She didn't speak, just stared. Tess put a hand on her shoulder. He bought us a future. He was our future, Mara said, barely above a whisper. Jace climbed into her lap. He held the small plastic battlecruiser and whispered, "He was the good guy." She nodded, eyes brimming. Yes, he was. Hours passed. The pod drifted until a scavenger relay caught their signal. A merchant vessel picked them up, a grimy hauler with bad air but good people. Mara didn't tell them much. Just enough to get safe. They offered her a technician's berth. She took it. Jace was given a bed near the greenhouse deck. Tess started fixing broken comms. And Mara sat, night after night, rewatching the moment of Koa's final stand. Not with grief, but gratitude. Weeks later, in a quiet section of deep space, she returned to her lab console. It was crude now, salvage tech, wires held together with recycled clamps. But her hands were steady. Her code was clean. Inside a secure databank, a memory shard, extracted from Koa days before the end. His last neural imprint. She connected it to a new core, handmade. No military-grade suppression. No governors. No commands. Just choice. She whispered to the silent shell, "Your story's not over," and uploaded the shard. The chamber lights flickered. A low hum began. She held her breath. Then, two glowing eyes opened. No roar. No threat. Just recognition.